This is not a typical commission rendering that a client would pay me for, but it's actually part of a design study where I produce three options with the same perspective. And this is just one of the three options. It's not my best work. I wouldn't include it as a piece in my illustration portfolio, but I do think it's important to share it with you because it shows a honest part of my day-to-day example as an architectural designer. So this was a exercise to look at a plan concept in 3D, even to convince myself first before showing it to a client. I did not have a CAD floor plan or a SketchUp model, but I did have a photo of the existing space, which is the space attached to the garage as sort of a makeshift storage space that's not very well utilized right now. What we're designing for the client was an artist studio with a space to create art, house equipment, and have the flexibility to accommodate future changes. Using the existing photo, which is almost a one-point perspective, I was able to pinpoint a vanishing point using the Procreate's built-in perspective tool. Now, it might take you a couple of tries to find this point, but when you do, the perspective from your photo should closely match with the perspective grid in Procreate. This perspective tool works much better if you have a truly squarish room with parallel walls, but as you can tell from this room, the ceiling is slightly on an angle, so you have to manually draw in the perspective for this part. It's not that hard, trust me, but for the most part, it is handy to help you build some perspective lines that you can later trace over. And for your information, I do have a hand sketch floor plans that I'm referencing this from, so I'm not just building the design out of thin air in 3D. But by drawing in perspective, I am putting a lot of thoughts into the drawing as I'm sketching, especially things that I may not have considered or accounted for in the floor plan can suddenly become obvious in 3D as an opportunity for consideration. The plan and perspective sketch often go hand in hand, and I really see this sketch as much of a design process with a bonus to use it for presentation at the end of the day. And the beauty of the digital workflow is you can edit, revise, redraw as necessary without starting the sketch from scratch. And in my own experience, this saves me so much more time. If my boss tells me to edit one tiny thing out, I can quickly do it, usually in a couple minutes, than having to redraw, rescan, and recompose in Photoshop. Also, my goal is to not invest too much time into these kind of study sketches, usually no more than 60 minutes for each option, because it needs to be quick, effective, and evocative enough to tell the story without burning too much time and feet. What I want to avoid is spending the time to draft it out nicely in plan, then build a 3D model, and all the options, which I know will take me significantly more time and resources to do. In this particular example, there is some economy of scale to set up the initial perspective because option 2 and option 3 all benefits from this initial setup and can be done much faster because I can just duplicate the existing drawing and make changes to it without starting over. So after I feel comfortable building out the perspective, I will create another layer to freehand on top of the hard line to finish the sketch with a softer line style, which is typically what I do. And here is where I get to humanize the view with furniture, texture, decor, and entourage. I usually love working on this part of the drawing because it's easy and fun to embellish and compose the story to tell the story that I need. The hard part was building the foundation of the composition, which is true in all my work. So the lesson is don't skip out on the initial foundation phase. If you go through it carelessly, you might find yourself in a spot where it doesn't matter how well embellished the view, something is going to look off. I am finding this kind of study sketches to be super helpful in the conceptual design phase with a client. And this could be your first or your second meeting where you're just bouncing off ideas, understanding the program requirement, and quickly filter good ideas from bad ones. Lastly, I left a couple of timestamps in the video for you to jump to in case you want to skip ahead. Overall, the sketch took about just an hour to finish, and all the tools and brushes are included in the description below for you to download and case study files for you to reference. I highly suggest you looking at them if this is your first time coming across my content. And tell me if there's something that you want to hear more of. I will try to address it in a future video. Until then, I hope you enjoy this video. Bye.